Welcome to a special bonus episode of the Passive House podcast, recorded at North American Passive House Network's conference, Passive House for All, in June 2021 in New York City. In this, the 11th of 18 interviews we recorded amidst the hustle and bustle of the conference hall floor, I chat with Ken Levenson, Executive Director of NAPHN. A couple of quick thank yous before we get started. First, thanks to NAPHN for putting on the conference and for partnering with us on these interviews. Second, a big thank you to our sponsors who make everything we do at the Accelerator possible. Our founding sponsors are 475 High Performance Building Supply, Baxtingwe Architects, Glavel, Minotaur, Mitsubishi Electric Train HVAC US, Partel, RDH Building Science, Rockwell North America, Stocorp, and Zola Windows. Our champion sponsor is SIGA, and our stakeholder partner is NYSERDA, the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority. So with that, please enjoy my interview with Ken. Well, it is my pleasure to sit down here with Ken Levenson, the Executive Director of North American Passive House Network and the driving force behind the conference here at Passive House for All. Thank you very much for everything you've done to make this happen and for sitting to chat.
Thank you, Zach. It's great to be here. It's great to have you here. So excited to see people coming from across the country and getting together, saying hello, hanging out. So nice to have just casual moments that aren't on a clock, where you know you're about to get clicked out, and just hang out. And it's this year as well. I think there's been, because some people have been holding back, people are coming where they're at. There's actually seems like a bunch of new faces, which is really encouraging. I don't know if it's not because of that, but it's just even more apparent that we need to reach broader audiences and bring in more people. And I think in some small way we've managed to accomplish that, which I'm really excited about.
Well, it's been really great to see the moves you've been making recently, but over the last good year and a half, in terms of centering equity in the development of the organization, and including BIPOC voices. Also doing, I know you were doing some outreach and discounts around that as well to really deliver on this notion of Passive House for All. So, it's good work.
Yeah, I think it's something that we talked about in a session yesterday. I think it's going to come up again later today. I mean, it's coming up in conversations. Is that, you need to be intentional to make these things happen. It's not going to happen because we feel like it needs to happen, or, we believe it should happen. You actually have to take concrete steps. So, these are baby steps. And I think another key concept that came up yesterday was, just start from wherever you are. It's not like you need to get yourself in a good place and then start. It's like, we are where we are, and the important thing is to start the project. Absolutely. And I think Passive House is just such the perfect vehicle for doing it. It's like we have this gift in that it has all these side benefits going in 100 directions. It doesn't need to be repackaged or sold as something, or positioned or be kind of salesy in a way that's not central to what it is anyway. And speak to people. So we just need to take better advantage of that and really leverage it.
One of the concepts that Bomi Jung has been talking about recently is this idea that Passive House is defining housing quality, and that while the energy efficiency of Passive House is important in terms of climate mitigation and things, the fact that when we do a Passive House, we're creating a better building, and because the investments in the envelope and all the work that we do are really about creating a better interior environment and raising that bar of what housing quality is, that it is a form of climate justice if done right.
Oh, absolutely.
So Yeah,
and you can extend that to, the communities, right? And the workers, the education, the job opportunities, and, and the health benefits right across the board, the training opportunities that it has, again, all these multiple ways of building on itself. Like, they say, government dollar spent really has a multiplier effect of so many times in stimulating the economy. And I think Passive House is kind of like that, where you're doing this one thing, but it has this huge multiplier effect and a pretty big flywheel effect in terms of loading those positive attributes to pay out over a long time. So
we're probably 2/3 of the way through the programming right now as we're speaking, or close, maybe a little bit past that.
Maybe.
So what have been some highlights for you from the conference? I mean, I know that it's probably been a whirlwind.
Yeah, it's been a total whirlwind. I mean, I have to say, highlights, first and foremost, seeing all the people and getting together. It's a broken record, but it is kind of remarkable after so many months. And while the session content has been fantastic, and I've loved the Q&A with the presenters, I think just the simple technological feat, not that we're landing a man on the moon or anything, but there are so many uncertainties, to be quite honest, and to feel like it's like, okay, there are things I might do differently, or we want to look to improve for sure, but the fundamentals is actually kind of works, and hearing reassuring reports from people remotely as well as participating here. Yeah, content-wise, I mean, there's just such a variety. It's hard too, because we packaged it where it wasn't going to be a huge deep dive in any particular area of Passive House in terms of the number of sessions or how far we could really go. But I've personally enjoyed the variety of the content. Each one in its own way goes deep enough to be able to hang on to it.
Well, I was reminded when there's nothing like being at a conference to re-engage and broaden your perspective in ways that are unexpected, the kind of accidental exposure to new ideas that can happen in a conference, both when we're on the floor and just talking to people, but also whether we're online or in person, and being exposed to presentations that we otherwise might not seek out on when we're at on our daily life.
Where you're scheduling your weeks out.
Yeah, I mean, that's really important, and that the thought leadership and expertise that you've assembled here among the speakers is what makes that happen and allows us to stay informed and relevant in our respective roles in the community.
No, I love it. The serendipity, the connections. It's like it's like your brain functioning. You're watching your brain functioning at a big scale through a whole bunch of people with all the synapses and the clicking.
Nice.
I think one thing that just popped into my mind was for the training session this morning. There's kind of this riffing through the chat while the presentation is actually happening, and then extending into the live Q&A about how do we connect the power of the Icebox Challenge with this idea of needing for hands-on learning with students in high schools and colleges, and the idea of the solar decathlon and needs for site mock-ups, and there are all these different modalities where you can bring things together and really have them be really powerful training tools. And we haven't, like, the Icebox Challenge is super powerful, and what's happened with it has been great, but we really haven't seen how we could really extend that, right? And do a million other things with it. And that kind of conversation bubbled out of that out of that session, which was pretty gratifying, exciting to see.
So NAPHN is among very few organizations in the world that have pulled off a hybrid conference at this point, right? I mean,
I'm not counting, as far as I know, we're like the first in our sector that's in person, and then trying to do it simultaneously online,
which is probably 10x more complicated rather than 2x.
It felt like we were planning 4 conferences, and the schedules, and realizing it's really kind of like broadcast TV, where it's down to the minute. Is like early on yesterday, somebody was saying to me, when people are strolling in, the usual kind of, not quite on time when you'd like everybody to be here, but you understand it's going to fill up. And somebody was like, well, we'll start a few minutes late, right? And I was like, no,
not for the online audience.
This is boom. Yeah. It's on time. From the accelerator, it's like we had a little, you start at the moment.
Yeah, exactly.
No hanging out. And the same thing with the Q&A when we're going from the presentation recordings to the live Q&A. It's like sometimes the moderators aren't quite sure yet how to deal with it. There's this whole fun learning curve. Yeah, totally. It's like, no, you have to start talking now. there's no like easing your way into it.
No dead air. That's funny. That's fantastic. So do you expect to do hybrid conferences regardless of pandemic?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny, and Bronwyn has spoken to this too, I think. We've had lots of conversations about it. Going back any number of years, we always talked about, we need to do hybrid conferences because everybody complains, just from a carbon perspective, that you have to fly everywhere, that you can't get together without doing that. And so it had always been an aspirational goal to go to hybrid conference. We didn't know what it really meant or the capabilities. Obviously, like for so many of us in so many ways, the pandemic has forced our hand, but to actually then choose to do it, it was like, okay, this opportunity has now presented us to do what we've actually said we wanted to do all along. Right. So that's pretty much why we went for it. It was like, psychologically we were there. Yeah. Now it's a matter of, okay, is it, successful enough? I think so far so good. We're not done yet. I think we see it as the future, that you want to be able to meet people where they are and still have the options to come together. And, we'll see how it plays out. And I'm hoping that it will allow us to be in more smaller markets and in emerging markets in a way that's more robust. Because right now it's, New York is great for having the conference. And a few other markets, but it's tough, and we really hope. Yes, the answer is yes. We're going to go.
It gives you more flexibility in terms of the physical piece of it too. That's cool. So I spoke with Craig Stevenson earlier today, and he announced
he'll become the chair of the board.
Very exciting. And in our conversation, I asked him the question of where do you see NAPHN heading in 5 years? And I'd love so
maybe we should have compared notes first.
He talked about acceleration of Passive House, and everywhere and for all building types.
Right.
So what would you add? What do you see? Where do you see NAPHN and the Passive House movement in 5 years? If it goes the way you'd like.
The catchphrase is to normalize it, right? Yeah. Is like you want it to be the code, the normal vocabulary, the language. I mean, I do talk more and more about it, just the vocabulary of Passive House, and maybe it's because I'm listening to a podcast on the history of English language.
Oh yeah,
and it's all about the vocabulary, right? And the core vocabulary and expanding vocabulary and where the words are coming from, and how your expression of what you can do changes. And you see it with Passive House, which it's not an exclusive vocabulary, but it's a particular vocabulary. And once you speak that language, it just opens up this whole other world. If NAPHN can be a catalyst, for that kind of shift in conversation, that's what I want to see. And I mean, I think that the training is a big part of that, obviously. Yeah. But, in any major profession, whether it's nursing or doctors or, whatever it is, it's not like an organization is going to dominate it. You need everybody doing these things. And I think support. I think being seen as a core technical, and being able to have like convening and convergence of expertise and reliability that can support, the margins where people need to be brought in, and it's like, okay, you're not just going to learn to run on day one.
Yeah.
You're going to have training wheels, and you need that support, and we're here to help you and connect you to the more experienced people, and make that kind of network as vibrant and stay open as possible. That's very wishy-washy answer, maybe nebulous, but that's kind of that's
well put.
It needs to embody that, whatever the programmatic manifestations may be.
Last night at dinner we were talking about that. There are still misperceptions about what Passive House is in the marketplace or among professionals, all sorts of them, and that any kind of word, we were using the term the terminology of branding, and Passive House isn't a brand, but anything like the term Passive House is a vessel for meaning, and I think we still have a lot of, and NAPHN will play a really important role in this, and in helping to define what Passive House truly is, and to move beyond.
Strip away all the accessories that people want to project onto it.
Exactly. Right. And it has this Passive House is part of this ecosystem of decarbonization and climate justice and climate mitigation and climate resilience, all sorts of things. And there's so much more work that all of us can do, I think, to make it clear what the connections are between Passive House and these other things, because we're not talking about exclusive either or. We just don't have the luxury of deciding we care about this way of doing it and decarbonizing and not the other way.
I think it's another strength of Passive House, that it's like this elemental. It's kind of fundamental and foundational that can plug into any number of systems, and not have to be claim it. It's going to support what your goals are, and you can be doing your own thing and have that plug-in of Passive House, and you don't need to make Passive House this other thing. Passive House is what it is, but it's not. It's like being a good ally, right? It's like your interests aren't necessarily 100% aligned about everything, because you're two independent, distinct entities. You never could be, even within a family. But you can work together, and you can support each other, and you can find the commonalities. And instead of trying to say, oh well, Passive House to succeed has to be all these other things. Anyway. People want to fight against the stripped down nature of it too much, in my opinion, and I'm just like, no, embrace it. It's a superpower. It's it really is something that can support all these other things you want to do.
Right, because then you have that opportunity for it being complementary, right? If it were
it's so much more interesting.
Right, exactly.
Everybody wants a closed loop. It's like, I don't, God bless Apple, but the world cannot be made up of closed loop Apple components. Exactly. It's much more.
Not if you want it to be Passive House for all. Right. I mean, that's you're shutting it down that way. Yeah, more like jazz. That's good.
It's more jazz.
Yeah, awesome. Ken, this has been really fantastic. Thank you so much, and thanks for your leadership and for allowing us to be doing these interviews. It's been really super fun.
Thank you, Zach. Yeah. Thank you for coming. Thank you for doing the interviews, and thank you to Passive House Accelerator. That is also just an absolute leader, and we're tremendously happy to partner and proud of that partnership. So
likewise,
look forward to doing a lot more together.
Thank you so much, Ken.
Cheers.
Yeah, you too.
All right.
I hope you enjoyed that special bonus episode of the Passive House podcast. On behalf of everyone here at the Passive House Accelerator, thank you for listening, and stay tuned for more on the Passive House podcast. Thank you. Bye-bye.